All right then. Okay. All right. Oh, I see. That. Okay, great. Done that now. All right then. Perfect. So let's go back to where we should be. That's it. Got it. Right. Okay. Let's start off. All right, we'll start off with our prayer, and I need to share my screen. That's it. Okay. ריבון עולמים ואדוני אדונים, אב רחמן וסליחות, מודים אנחנו לפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ולאבותינו, בקידה בשתחוויה, שקרבתנו לתורתך ולעבודתך עבודת הקודש, ונתת לנו חלק בסודות תורתך הקדושה, מה אנו ומחיינו, אשר עשית עמנו חסד גדול כזה. על כן אנחנו מפילים תחנוננו לפניך, שתמחול ותסלח לכל חטאותינו ועוונותינו, ועל יהיו עוונותינו מבדילים בינינו לביניך, וכן יהיו רצון מלפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ולאבותינו, שתכונן את לבבינו ליראתך ולבראתך, ותקשיב אוזניך לדברינו אלה, ותפתח לבבינו הערל בסודות תורתך, ולימודנו זה נחת רוח, לפני כיסא כבודך כרך ניחוח, ותאציל עלינו אור מקור נשמתנו בכל בחינתנו, שיתנוצצו ניצוצות עבודך הקדושים, אשר על ידם גלית דבריך אלה בעולם, וזכותם, וזכות אבותם, וזכות תורתם ותמימותם וקדושתם, אמוד לנו לבל נקשר בדברים אלו. ובזכותם תראיננו במה שאנו לומדים, כמאמר נעים זמירות ישראל, גל עיני והביט הנפלאות מתורתך, כי אדוני תן חוכמה מפיו דעת ותבונה, יהיו לו רצונים מפי, ויגון ליבי לפניך, אדוני צורי וגואלי. Amen. Can you rtzon? So, the one we're going to do today, I think, is a really, really interesting article from Rabbi Baruch Ashlag, and I thought of doing something which was a bit more specific for Rosh Hashanah. I felt, in actual fact, looking at this particular article, it was so clearly to do with our inner work for the whole year that I felt it was like important for us to learn it, because it actually helps us with Rosh Hashanah. It helps us decide what are we aiming for, because you can go into Rosh Hashanah in many ways. You can look at the blowing of the shofar, you can look at it as Yom Adin, you can look at it as the beginning of the new year. But I think one of the most important aspects to look at for Rosh Hashanah is actually to come to sort of decisions, a little bit about what do I want to change, how do I want to live my life in the future, in the new year, in a different way. I mean, it's like an opportunity for a new start. And I felt that this article, which is based on a pasuk in this week's parasha, Ki Tavo, actually gives us such a good basis for understanding how we see things, how we want to see things, and how we can come to a better place within ourselves. So it's quite a long article, so we're going to get straight into it, okay? And of course I'll stop, or every time you want to ask a question, just call out. I'll stop, of course, as we go along. But anything you really want to ask, just interrupt. It makes it easier for me, because I can't actually see you when I'm showing my screen. Okay, so Rav Baruch Ashlag, it's one of his articles, asks the question: Mal ba'avoda sheyamin v'smol hein b'stira. What does it mean in our inner work that the right hand line and the left hand line are opposite to each other? Now, just to define what he means,
Yedida, where are you on the page?
right at the very beginning, I haven't started, just the headline.
No, okay. Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. So the right hand line is the most of our day we need to spend most of our time on the right hand line, and the right hand line is having total faith that the way we are is exactly the way we're meant to be. Okay, with all our faults and all our good deeds and all our bad deeds, and just the way we are is exactly the way we're meant to be, because this is the way God's created us, and this is the way God's brought us on our journey to this moment up till now. But then, of course, we come to the other side, the left-hand side, which is self-criticism, looking at the truth about ourselves, in truth how far away we are from God and where our defects really lie, and asking God to help us. So the right hand line is the side of faith, and the left hand line is the side of truth and of prayer. And in many ways, these two ways of being with ourselves are completely opposite. Because how can I be on the one hand totally happy with where I am, and on the other hand be critical of myself and look to see where I'm going wrong? And so Rabbi Ashlag asked this question, and this is what he writes. The scripture says in parasha Ki Tavo, "Ushmatem et divrei habrit," and you shall keep the words of my covenant, this covenant, vasitem otam, and do them, leman taskilu et kol asher tasun, in order that you shall, take in, like really understand all that you are doing. יש להבין מה שאומר ושמרתם וכו' ועשיתם אותם. What does it mean when the scripture says, and you shall keep the words of this covenant and do them, in order that you shall really take in, really understand all that you're doing? Mashma mikan, it seems to mean from here that the issue of doing is in order that through our doing we will understand all that we do. Okay, so it would be that the aspect of doing is like a preparation, like the potential, and that the skula, the virtue of doing, enables us to come that eventually will understand all that we do. From this it follows that we need to discern two issues in our inner work. First of all, the aspect of doing, okay, doing the mitzvah, okay, doing the kindness, as it says, and you shall do them. But there's also an issue of understanding why we're doing it, as it says, in order that you shall understand all that you do. And on the surface it seems this to be a contradiction, because on the one hand it seems to imply that the main purpose is the actual deed, as it says, and you shall keep this covenant to do them. But then it says, in order that you shall understand all that you do, seeming to imply that the doing is only a means by which that we'll be able to come to understanding with our mind and with our emotional understanding, our da'at. So the Holy Zohar actually explains this, okay? And he actually explains that we can discern two different aspects in the 613 commandments, okay? On one hand, the 613 commandments are called itin. Itin in Aramaic means eitzot, good advice. And the second way, okay, the 613 commandments are called pikudin. Pikudin is the actual word for mitzvah in Aramaic. And the difference between them is that the good advice, doing the mitzvah as good advice, is not the ultimate purpose. But they are the right way which enable us to reach our destination. And this is very difficult to understand. How can the Zohar tell us that the 613 mitzvot are only advice, and then tell us that they're called 613 mitzvot? And Rav Yehuda Lev Ashlag, the Bala Sulam, explains this as follows. Okay, Pikudin means like a light deposit. It's got a deposit of light actually in the mitzvah. And this is what it says. כשזוכים לבחינת לשמוע בכל דברו, נעשים התרי"ג מצוות בבחינת פיקודין, והוא מלשון פיקדון. It's only when we merit to understand the word of the mitzvah, then the 613 mitzvot become pikudin, from the language of pikadon, deposit. Because in each one of the 613 mitzvot, in every mitzvah, is deposited the light of a specific spiritual stage, which is the equivalent, which is the equivalent for the each vessel, each limb of our 613 limbs and sinews of our soul and of our body, because our body is based on the soul. Why do we have, why is the body built the way it's built? It's built that way because it's built on the template of the soul. So we find that when we do a mitzvah, it brings to that limb, that vessel, which is its appropriate one in the soul and in the body, the specific level of light which belongs to that limb or organ and sinew. So according to what the Zohar explains there in the parasha Sulam, we can explain quite simply, and this is what he says, and this is his language. In every single matter, there is an inner aspect and an outer aspect, or a potential aspect and an actual aspect. Okay? The aspect of preparing something is called achor. It's called potential. Okay? And when we actually attain the matter, it's called panim. Panim means actuality. We can actually use it. And in this way, in Torah mitzvot, we have two aspects. We've got na'aseh and we've got nishma. We will do and we will hear. Hear meaning understand. Okay? When we fulfill the Torah mitzvot to start off with, we have to do it just from the place of faith, doing God's word without understanding, before we merit to understand. And at that point, the mitzvot are called by the name of the 613 pieces of advice, and they are in potential only. Okay? Alright? Nevertheless, they're still important, because if we don't do the potential, then we don't have any actual at all. Okay? So don't think just doing it because we don't, even when we don't understand, is not worth anything. It's worth a lot, as we're going to find out. And we've asked, how then is it written, and you shall keep and you shall do them, which seems to imply that the most important thing is the action, and only then it says, in order that you shall understand. That is to say, that I'm telling you and you shall do them is the preparation in order to attain the inner meaning of our actions. In other words, that the main aspect is the understanding and the taking, really getting it, and really connecting with it. The da'at is the connection and not the action. But the answer is like this. The most important fact is the action. In other words, without doing the actual actions, we don't attain anything. Alright? But with the virtue of the action, of the good deed, of the mitzvah, of the gemilut chasadim, then through that we're able to come to dveikut, which is designated as affinity of form. But even because from shelo lishma, when we do mitzvot and Torah, which is not for its own sake, then we can come to lishma, Torah for its own sake. And so therefore the most important thing is the actual doing, is beginning the whole process, all right? Doing the action. Okay, even if our intention at the beginning isn't of the best, nevertheless, at least we're on the path, we're beginning, okay? And that way we can come to lishma. If we don't do the action at all, then there's nothing to talk about. Okay? Now, as regards the actions themselves, we can discern two distinctions. One, hamasim ba'atzmam, the actions themselves, when they are still in the aspect of emtsaim, that is means by which, that is to say, they are still in the aspect of preparation through which a person is able to attain vessels of giving. What's vessels of giving? The desire to give. Okay? What's a vessel? A vessel is the desire to actually want to be a giver. Alright? Okay? To give unconditionally. That's a very precious thing to actually attain. Alright? Because we're born with a will to receive for ourselves alone. And to actually want to become a giver, it's a huge thing. So the actual actions of Torah and mitzvot actually have the potential to enable us to attain something which is completely opposite to our nature, all right? Which is the ability to give unconditionally and to become in that way in dveikut like God. And that is such an amazingly rare thing, just an amazingly beautiful thing. So this is what the beauty of Torah and mitzvot really is. Even if we're doing it at the lowest possible level, nevertheless through them, it's a potential with which we're able to attain the vessels of giving. And when we've attained through these good deeds, the vessels, the desires which are called the will to give unconditionally, then a person is able to attain the light which is enclosed in the deeds. Okay, actually be able to receive the light which is enclosed in the good deeds. That is to say that all the deeds that he did before he merited to actually having the desire of giving unconditionally, okay, because the Torah and mitzvot is a means by which to gain this desire, okay. That is to say, even though there is light enclosed in the Torah and mitzvot, it was like a deposit, okay, a light deposit. It's like hidden away, okay, in the Torah and mitzvot, and it wasn't possible for the person yet to see what there is in Torah and mitzvot. Why not? Because he doesn't yet have the appropriate vessels for the light. Okay? Because if he was to see what the light was in the Torah and mitzvot, at that stage, when he's still involved with his selfish love, with his will to receive for ourselves alone, then he'd be liable to say, oh yeah, I want to do another mitzvah, not because he wants to do the mitzvah for the sake of the mitzvah, but he wants to do it for the sake of the light. He becomes light junkies, okay? We would all become light junkies, all right? If we're not cleaned of our will to receive for ourselves alone first, okay, then we can become light junkies, and that's not what God wants from us. He wants us to come to him from true free will, not because we're, attracted to the light like a moth. Only when a person's merited to true vessels of giving unconditionally, in other words, he's let go of his will to receive himself alone, the process has happened, he's done Torah and mitzvot, trying to come to Lishma, and eventually God has had graciousness to him, and he's come to that, then he can receive the light which is enclosed in Torah and mitzvot. Okay? And then he sees that even before he merited to see that there was light enclosed in Torah and mitzvot, he can now see the light that was there previously, but it was like a deposit. It wasn't open to him. It was there, but hidden. From this we can see that there really isn't a contradiction. The fact that it's written first, that the most important part first is the action, you shall do them, because the action begins the whole issue and actually finishes it. Okay? Like, until the action is first we start off with the action, which is Torah mitzvot shelo lishma, and eventually we come to Torah mitzvot lishma. But each time it's got to have the action of Torah and mitzvot. Okay? You can't just come to intentions without an action. Alright? It's no good intending to feed the baby. The baby's not going to be happy unless he actually gets fed. Alright? He's got to have an action there. That there is this sort of definition in the middle. There is before he merited to the actual vessels of giving unconditionally, or after he merited to the vessels of giving unconditionally. It is through his actions that he merits to such vessels. Vessels is the desire to give unconditionally. And therefore it's through his deeds he merits the light. And this is called Leman taskilu et kol asher tasun. Okay? That is to say that only after he's first he does the actions, okay, which is not for its own sake, okay, that helps him get and purify the vessels of giving unconditionally, and then he's able to do the actions of Torah mitzvot for God's sake, okay, unconditionally. And then he can see that the manta spirit tasun, you come to the moment when you're able to understand what you were doing, you're able to see the light, to merit the light in Torah mitzvot. And this is what is written in Jeremiah, Haskel v'yadoa oti. At that point a person can really have like intelligence and knowledge of God and connection with God and emotional intelligence of the and being dveikut with God. Okay, lovely. So that's where we're aiming for. All right? Okay? So far so good? All right. אולם צריכים לזכור שמתם שזוכים לכלים את ההשפעה רק כשרוצים לזכות לעבוד לתועלת השם ולא לתועלת עצמו, יש בעבודה הזה הרבה עליות וירידות. But it's not the smooth path that Rabbi Ashlag has presented to us up till now. On the contrary, he says like this. But we need to remember that before we merit the vessels of giving unconditionally, we need to, we're just at the point when we still want to merit to serve God unconditionally and not for ourselves alone. We haven't got there yet, we're on the journey. There is in this work many ups and downs. Why is this? Because the guf, the body, our personality, our ego, our will to receive for ourselves alone, our physical body, mitnaged lavuda, opposes working unconditionally. It wants to get a reward. It doesn't like it. Okay? It doesn't want to work to come to dveikut with God. There are lots of reasons why. I mean, first of all, it's lazy. Okay, it doesn't want to move. Second of all, it prefers to rest. Second of all, it's prepared to do things, providing it can see what it gets for it. Okay, like, okay, I'll give to you. What do I get? You know, and what's the reward? Either a reward in this world or a reward in the world to come. What's the reward? That's the nature of the will to receive that we're all born with. That's why we have ups and downs, because sometimes we manage to subdue the body for a bit, the will to receive for ourselves alone for a bit. That's called an aliyah. And then it starts coming back in full swing. That's called a yuridah. We go down again. Okay? That's exactly what he writes here. Okay? And the other reason, of course, why the body opposes such work, because it loses its dominion. It knows it's its end. Alright? It doesn't want that. It loses its dominion. Ultimately, it'll come back into use. It's not that it's going to be lost forever, not at all. It's going to come back into use in order to fulfill God's purpose in creation. The will to receive, in fact, is a precious part of ourselves which only needs redirecting and transforming. It doesn't mean it's going to get lost. It's actually going to be a very precious part of ourselves with which we're able to receive all that God wants to give us. But until then, we have this whole program of ups and downs, and sometimes the good increases in a human being, and sometimes the bad increases in the human being. And this is called milchemet hayetzer, okay, the war of our inclination. That is to say, yesh avodah b'vchinat ha'maaseh, שזוהי עבודת הכלל, שצריכים לכוון שמעשים שאדם עושה לא יהיו לשם כבוד וכסף וכדומה, אלא לשם שמיים. Okay? There's work and the aspect of the action, okay? And this is the work that everybody needs to do, and we need to try to intend that our actions will not be for the sake of honor or for money or such like that, but go for the sake of heaven. And therefore, those people who really want to work for the sake of heaven, try to do their actions modestly. Okay? And the measure of modesty, my father of blessed memory said, he's talking about the Bala Sulam, said that a person needs to behave exactly the same way as everybody else in his immediate environment. He shouldn't be different from his environment. Okay? In other words, if he shows outside that he's mekel, taking Torah mitzvot more lightly than is customary in the place where he lives or the place where he learns, or he's taking things more seriously than what is customary in his environment, that's not being modest, because other people who in his surrounding, okay, there are other people there, and if somebody does something completely different, he attracts attention from the society, and everybody looks at him, and then he's not modest. But the people who feel a tam b'avodah, a good taste in the service of God, okay, is coming from the surrounding light, which gives light to the community of Israel, to the general people of Israel, as it's written, I am the Lord who dwells with you within your impurity. Ani Hashem hashochen itam b'toch tumatam. In other words, even though a person is still not purified from his selfish love, and all his work is in order that God should give him a reward, either in this world or in the next world, nevertheless, he's still working for the sake of God, okay? And in other words, at this point, he wants that God should give him a reward. And in this work, a person is able to see how he's progressing, because each day he adds another bit more into our mitzvot. And so then he feels happy and he feels life force, and he can fulfill what's written, Sivdu et Hashem b'simcha, serve the Lord with gladness. However, this work is called kav echad, one line, okay? because a person is not aware that really for the sake of heaven, he also needs to pay attention to why he's working. Okay, we'll look at the bottom. Yes, in other words, he needs to pay attention to, sorry, there we go, I went too far, to why he's working. And the real Shem Shamayim is it Lishma, or is it Lo Lishma, or is it Lishma? Okay, so a person first of all could say, I'm working for the sake of God because God's going to give me a reward either in this world or next world. But that's not really Lishma. He's really working for himself under the guise of working L'Shem Shamayim. Okay? So to really work L'Shem Shamayim, a person has to pay attention to why am I working? What is my work about? Why? How can I really serve God in this pure way? Okay. Okay, 1 second. Thanks. But all the community, they have faith in the words of the sages, and the sages tell us, "L'olam yilmad adam Torah mitzvot, afilu shelo lishma, shemitoch shelo lishma ba lishma." A person should always, sok, I thought was a practice Torah mitzvot, even if it's not for its own sake. For not for its own sake, by doing the work, not for its own sake, he'll come to Torah for its own sake. But we actually need to pay attention to this intention, okay? And we need to give it time, and we need to pay attention to it and give it work, okay? And if a person doesn't consider that, then he thinks it's just going to come sort of automatic, okay? Oh yeah, I'm doing Torah Shelo Lishma, and then eventually it'll come to Lishma, okay? And I don't even have to pay attention to it. It's sort of an automatic process. But this is actually what Rav Ashlag is telling us. It doesn't happen automatically, okay? If we think it's going to come automatically, this is called Kav Echad. It's just in one line. We're just working in one line, actually focusing only on the action without paying real attention to the intention behind it. Am I really working Lishma, or am I still in Lo Lishma? And if we don't pay attention, we stay more or less where we are, okay? Now, if we come to the understanding that working for the sake of heaven is really a specific work, that this work does not actually belong to the general population, because only if somebody really is really, gets an idea from God, and really an awakening that our intention also needs to be for the sake of giving, okay, that's something special. And then he begins to work in this direction. And I think also, to be honest, to learn about it is very important. But the actual switch into Lishma is a grace from God. I really think so. And when we see that we're not in Lishma and coming to Lishma, and we want to come to Lishma, it's not enough even just to learn about it or to hear about it. The honest truth is we need to pray for it, because it's such a big step, okay? Because the moment we really want to come for the sake of giving, that's the moment when the ego is going to rear its ugly head. And if we're just doing the action, believing that we're going to get a reward in this world or the next world, the ego will calm down and it'll contribute, all right? But that's not really, like I say, it's not really working Lishma. It's it's still really working for ourselves, either in this world or the next world. Okay? It's better than doing it for honor and for glory or for money or whatever, but it's still not quite there. It's not the actuality where we can access that picadon. Okay? It's still considered as potential. But when we really come to the understanding that Shem Shamayim is Avodah Miyuchedet, is a really specific work, this is really an enlightenment that we get as the individual. Okay? Shezeh Devar Miyuchad. Okay, this is something special. And then we need to begin to work in that direction. And then we begin all the self-bikorit. Okay, the criticism. Is it in our ability to work for the sake of God and not for the sake of ourselves? And it's on this work that there's tremendous opposition by the ego, by the body, okay? Because our man's nature, human being's nature, is that he doesn't understand why he should do anything if he's not going to be self-serving. That's our born in, default, our default way of being in the world. So this is when all the ups and downs begin, okay? That's when all the aliyot and yiridot begin. And then, through the examination, through the self-examination a person does on his deeds, are they really for the sake of God, or are they really for my own sake? Then a person can see the truth. He can see really his lowliness and how far away he is from serving God this way. And then a person needs to give prayer to God, that God should give him the power to overcome his will to receive for himself alone. And there's sometimes when his ego maintains, wait a minute, you've seen how many times you already prayed to God that he should help you and you didn't get any help? So of course this work is not for you. And it's very difficult not sometimes to listen to this voice, to this nonsense. Okay? And sometimes, like he says, it's not possible for a person to overcome these complaints. And we find that a person in this situation feels like he's like dead. He's got no life force. He's got no connection with God. And a person feels he can't move forward and serve God. And this feeling is called the left-hand line in the work. Okay, when he's looking to see where he is, he sees how far away he is, he sees he's got no life force. Okay, it's the left-hand line. Okay? Kiesh klal. Kol davar shetzarich tikun nikra small. Everything that needs, there's a general rule that everything that needs a tikkun is called the left-hand line. אוקיי, ולכן בעבודה אסור לאדם לעסוק בדרך זו, אנו לעסוק ביקורת עם העבודה שלא היא בשלימות, אלא כמובן בסדר העבודה. And therefore, in our service for God, we shouldn't be there on that line, okay, on a continual basis, because there's no life force there. We can't move anything without life force, okay? Only in the way that Rabbi Ashlag put forth, which is to say that on the work of the left-hand line, it's sufficient half an hour a day, okay? Only half an hour a day are we allowed to go to the left-hand line and look where we really are, see how far away we are, see be'emet how lowly we are, that we can't overcome our will to receive ourselves alone. Only half an hour a day, okay? And not any old half an hour a day, half an hour that we decide in advance, okay? Because otherwise we find that the Yetzer Hara just sort of like absolutely sits on this left-hand line and tells us the most dreadful things about how useless we are, okay? And you certainly don't want to have that all day, because you have that all day, you just give up, you can't do anything, okay? So only half an hour a day. And if it comes at any other time other than the half hour that we fixed, you tell it to go away. All right, say sorry. It's not time for you right now. Goodbye. Tell it to go away. Okay? So you're not interested. And the rest of the day, the main aspect of the work of a person needs to be on the right hand line, which is shleimut, which is wholeness. Okay? And in this work, a person needs to see himself without self-criticism, and he needs to believe in total faith that just the way he is, he's whole, and his work is just the way God wants it. A person needs to say, even if my work for Torah mitzvot are not objectively whole, not objectively perfect, nevertheless I give thanks to God that he gave me the understanding and the will to do even the tiniest little bit in holiness. And even if it's the tiniest little bit, for me, I value it enormously, like a tremendous treasure. Okay? Because I see that there's many people in the world, there's billions of people in the world who don't even have the slightest connection with Torah mitzvot. So, whatever connection you've given me, I'm delighted in my portion that you've given me. Even this tiny connection you've given me, I'm delighted with it. Okay? And since I believe that this is so important, even the tiniest connection with spirituality, more than all my life in this world, okay? But I don't have the merit that they've given me anymore, okay? And even if the rest of the time, my mind gets taken up with all sorts of shiur that I can't deal with, nevertheless, I'm going to be happy all day that I've even got this tiniest little bit of ruchaniut, of spirituality and Torah mitzvot, and from this I can have a good feeling and a good mood and be happy, okay? Because even though I recognize how lowly I really am, nevertheless I'm delighted and give thanks to God on the little portion that I've merited. Okay? So on the right hand line, a person needs to be happy and grateful, whatever he is, wherever he is, whatever we manage to do in the tiniest bit, we have to blow it up and really say, that's fantastic, it's wonderful, thank you God for the great benefit, the great privilege you've given me of serving me, of letting me serve you, even the tiniest bit. Okay? And we don't go to the left-hand line, which is, the line of feeling lowly and miserable and that we can't do whatever. Okay? We go only to the left-hand line half an hour a day maximum. And the rest of the time, we're happy and grateful and giving thanks. And this is what is written also in Parashat Ki Tavo, V'samachta b'kol hatov asher natan lecha Hashem Elokecha. And you should rejoice for all the good which the Lord your God has given you. V'yesh lavin, and we need to understand this. V'ki tzrichim latet tzivui l'adam shishmach im yesh lo tov, halo mitzad hateva mi sheyesh lo tov hu sameach. So we need to understand what is the commandment here, and you should be glad for all, rejoice with all the good which the Lord your God has given you. Why do we need a commandment that a person should be happy if he's got all good? Because it's a natural, if a person's got good, he's going to be happy. Okay? So what does this phrase really mean? And Rabbi Ashlag says like this. We need to explain this in the way of our inner work. Since we've now seen that in our work there is the right hand line and the left hand line, that is when a person has begun to walk on the way to actually merit to attain the vessels of giving, that is to say, he's come to the left-hand line because he wants to see the truth. if he's able to serve for the sake of God and not for the sake of himself. And like we said earlier, this causes a person a lot of ascents and descents, a lot of ups and downs in his inner work. And from this, a person doesn't have he doesn't have motive power. He doesn't have any fuel. And he's able to continue the work, okay? Because on the left-hand line, they're showing the truth, okay? That he shouldn't deceive himself, and to say that he already came to his wholeness. But in order that a person should have motivation for his work, that is only possible for a person to receive when he's feeling whole, when he's feeling happy, when he's feeling good with himself, and that's the right-hand line. Then he has joy in everything that he does. However, we need to ask a question. Now, we've explained both sides, okay? We've got the right-hand line and the left-hand line, and they are complete opposites to each other, okay? Or a person feels that he's whole, or he sees that he's lacking. And how can you have two completely opposites for the same person? And the answer is, even though they've got the same vehicle, the same person, nevertheless you've got different times. There's a time for when a person needs to be in shiflut, feeling lowly, okay? And there's a time for when he needs to be feeling whole. Two different times, okay? And Rabbi Ashlag describes it like this here. But he describes it in different ways in different places. Person needs time when he's got the aspect of pride, okay? As my father of blessed memory said, in our work there's always two opposites, always, because we've got soul and body, okay? Soul has got the desire to give unconditionally, the body has the desire to receive, okay? Opposites. So we're always dealing with opposites, always, 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 okay? So the sages on the one hand said in Pirkei Avot, Ma'od Ma'od Hevei Shafel Ruach, okay? Be very, very, very humble, okay? In other words, that the main part of a person's work, that a person should always try to be humble, okay? On the other hand, it also says in Divrei Hayamim, V'yikbar libo b'darkei Hashem, a person needs to be proud in the ways of God, okay? In other words, a person needs to be proud, okay? And not look at what everybody else is doing, but he needs to be greater, better, better than everybody else. Okay, so again, we need to ask, how can we be proud and humble at the same time? Okay, how can we be both two opposites in one vehicle? Alright, but we can by looking at these things in two different times, one after the other, and then both aspects can be fulfilled. And we need to ask the question, why do we need these two opposites? Okay, why do we need these two opposite ways of working? Why isn't it sufficient one way? Okay, either humble or pride. And the answer is we need both lines. Okay, the right hand line, as we've explained, we get life force and we get vigor and we get work of faith and thanks. And the left-hand line, which is the place of lack and seeing where we really are, the place of truth, and the place of prayer, praying for where we're not, praying because we see our lack. So even though these are opposites from each other, we need both lines. And it's actually in this contradiction, in this tension between them, okay? The tension between these two lines actually gives us the result, okay, that we need in order to ultimately attain the purpose of creation, which is that God's will is to give goodness to the created beings. In other words, we progress on two lines. Rabbi Ashlag writes in other places, you can't walk on one foot. You can't dance on one foot. You have to dance on both. Okay? It's the dance. We have to dance on both. Body and soul. Soul and body. Yamin, small. Okay? We have to dance with both, on both sides. We cannot receive all the good and joy from God until we come to affinity of form with Him. And that means we need to rectify ourselves with the desires of giving unconditionally, which is affinity of form. And since a person is born with, from his nature, with the will to receive for himself alone, okay, therefore, the person's told straight away when he starts fulfilling Torah mitzvot, we first have to tell him that through fulfilling Torah mitzvot, yes, you'll get reward in this world and the next world, okay, because that way he's got some fuel to do the Torah mitzvot in the first place. And according to how much he believes in the reward and in the consequences if he doesn't, accordingly a person fulfills Torah mitzvot. And even though he's working l'shem shamayim in the sense that he wants his reward from God and not from people, okay, and he's not practicing Torah mitzvot so that other people will see how he does it, but really his work, it really is l'shem shamayim because God commanded him to do so. Nevertheless, this is still called lo lishma, okay, because he's still wanting deep down to get a reward. Why is that? Because גם מבחינת המעשה, כלומר, הגם שמבחינת המעשה הוא עוסק בתורה מצווה רק לשם שמיים, it's true that even though from the actual action he's doing Torah mitzvot only for the sake of heaven, אבל הכוונה היא לתועלת עצמו, but his inner intention is still for himself alone. And that's why it's called lo lishma. אולם חז"ל אמרו, but the sages said, לעולם יעסוק אדם בתורה מצוות שלא לשמה, מתוך שלא לשמה בא לשמה. A person should always occupy himself with Torah and mitzvot not for its own sake, because from not for its own sake, he'll come to for its own sake. ואדם צריך לומר, בתוך עמי אנוכי יושבת. And a person also needs to say, I dwell amongst my people. That is, everybody on the one hand needs to work like everybody else, okay? But inside himself, without paying special attention, a person will stay at the level of lo lishma. And he'll never actually gain that aspect of the purpose of creation if he doesn't pay attention to the inner intention. Now, the inner intention is not something you can see on the outside. The inner intention is something that only a person knows from the inside. Okay? That's why on the outside, you look like everybody else. But on the inside, that's the work. And therefore, a person needs to say then, V'ikbali bo b'darkei Hashem. Okay? Then he needs to say within himself, nobody needs to know about it. Okay? Then I need to, his heart should be proud in the ways of God. In other words, I don't want to be b'dargat hash'liflut k'mo. I don't want to be like everybody else. Okay? I do want to attain this purpose of creation. I do want to attain the light of God. I do want to come to serve God truthfully, okay, in the right way. And now he begins to work by looking at himself, by seeing where he really is, okay, and to see how much he prefers the love of God over his own love for his own self. And when he really sees that, he sees how much he lacks. He sees where he's really at, and wow, this is, he really begins to feel it. And he begins to look for advice, how to get out of his selfish love. But here, in this situation, okay, now begins a war, a battle, between his own will to receive for himself alone, okay, which he's got, okay, and because he now wants to attain the will to give unconditionally. And sometimes the will to give unconditionally gets the upper hand, and sometimes it's the opposite, and the will to receive gets the upper hand. And this is why we get the ups and the downs. However, a person also needs to know that when he's in this feeling of lack, he's got no life force. It's like trying to eat salt with no food, okay? And he's got no motivation. He's got no fuel, okay, to continue his work in Torah mitzvot. And then he needs to go to the right hand line, okay? Now the right hand line, okay, is actually like one line. That is to say, it's the same work that he has when he's only working for the sake of the deed, which is called Shelo Lishma. And he needs now to say, on the right hand line, I don't need to pay attention if my work is Lishma, but I need to say right now that I'm no better than anybody else, okay? Just like everybody else is working Shelo Lishma, so, and get satisfaction from their work. So also, and they're feeling happy with it, so like me, okay? And I'm, so me as well, okay? And he needs to be humble. He needs to say, okay, at this point, I'm no better than anybody else. In fact, he even says here, I'm worse than everybody, okay? Because I'm actually at a lower level, both in quantity and in quality, and certainly I don't deserve any better place in the work. But nevertheless, and he needs to say, thank you, Educator, that you even gave me a thought and desire to do something in spirituality. And that's like a present from God, that he gave me ability to do something in Torah mitzvot. And from that, he gets happiness, because even from that little bit, he says, okay, whatever you give me, I'm happy. Okay? Right. Okay? And Adam Azet Nikah Baruch. And such a person calls himself happy. And he's happy and he feels blessed just with that tiny little bit. Okay? And when a person feels himself to be blessed, okay, then he's able to be blessed, to be connected with the Blessed One. As it's written, Baruch mitabek bebaruch. One who is blessed feels himself to be blessed, therefore he's connected with the one from whom all blessings flow. So on the one hand, we have the time when we just, okay, I am who I am, I have to have faith, I have to have emunah that my work is accepted and loved and just like everybody else is. I'm just like everybody else, and just to be happy for being who I am. And that happiness needs to be shining right through the day, okay? Except for the half an hour when we do the left-hand line.
Dida,
Yes.
can I ask a question here? First of all, thank you so much. And I do have to say that you sounded very much like a Breslover today with Rabbi Ashlag's teachings, because he speaks very clearly. He says it's an hour a day. Rabbi Ashlag is very generous. Rabbi Nachman says 1 hour a day of sadness and self-reflection, and the rest of the day happiness. So thank you for getting me off the hook with a half hour. That sounds great. But that sounds fantastic. But my question, although I didn't hear all the shiur, but as much as I could with the time zone here, when a person knows a little bit about Torah and mitzvahs and understands, through their studies, what Hashem wants, and that ultimately we know, this world is just the prosdor and the world to come. My question is, can you really ultimately reach a level of doing Hashem's will, totally lishma, with completely disconnecting at all with the idea that, forget about this world, but Bez Hashem Yitbarach, we're trained that way, that there's a world to come. And so there's always going to be some inkling of lo lishma, because to me, the world to come is where it's at. We know this is just the 70 years plus. So I wonder about that. I don't know if I'm making myself clear.
Yeah, okay. So the answer to that is that Rav Ashlag wrote a letter it was to his brother, and in which he absolutely tells us the preciousness of the incarnation into this physical world, because it's only in this physical world that we can actually do the work that we are given to. It's the work is in this world, the reward is in the world to come. But the work itself is so precious, because in the human being is unique in all the spiritual cosmos. Okay, that every single element in the spiritual cosmos is either in the framework of holiness or in the framework of evil. All the angels are either on the framework of holiness or the framework of evil. Okay, everything is divided into kedusha and tumah. Everything. Okay, and the only being in the whole of the cosmos is the human being. Okay, who is here in this world, all right, and he has both systems inside of him. He has the soul, which is the body, and the body. Okay, sorry, you have the soul and you have the body. The expression of the soul is the right hand line. The expression of the body is the left hand line. Okay, now what's the advantage? The advantage of this is that through our action of Torah and mitzvot, we can take elements from the framework of evil, which is represented by our will to receive for ourselves alone, okay, and move them into the framework of holiness. That's the tremendous work that the human being can do in this world that is not possible to be done in any other world, and not even in the next world. So we can actually do the Torah and mitzvot, which have a transformatory action, okay? Which we said earlier, they've got the potential and they've got the actual, we go from the potential of Torah and mitzvot to the actual Torah and mitzvot. And what are we doing with the Torah and mitzvot? We're actually taking elements of our will to receive for ourselves alone and moving them to the side of holiness. So what are we actually doing? We're actually affecting the balance between holiness and uncleanness in the whole cosmos, okay? If a person does one action, does one mitzvah, not only is he tilting the world, tilting the balance for himself, but he's also tilting the balance for the whole world, as Rabbi Elazar says.
I totally get it, but I'm not diminishing. We understand that, but that nikuda of that in the back, I'm talking about a very high level, where still we know that this world is olam ha'asiyah, and you can't do anything after the world to come. You're pickled. You are what you are, but you still know that in the world to come you reap the ultimate merit. It's here, schar mitzvah b'hayal maleka. You cannot possibly get the full merit of what you're doing. It is the world to come. It's the different currency there. So that's what I'm asking about. Is it possible, like the Ashlag and Rabbi Nachman v'chulei, again, that they could come to a point, as a human being, come to a point where it's kulo l'shem shemaim, without even a machshava of the world to come? That's maybe my question.
Well, not being a tzaddik myself,
okay, I don't want to give anybody too many headaches here. I
think the answer really is that if you read some of Rabbi Ashlag's poetry, for example, you read Rav Kook's poetry.
Yeah.
If you read, they say very, very, very clearly that they did come. I mean, it's very clear to me that they did come to this incredible light and beauty and connection here in this world. They did. I think, they did.
I believe that. I feel so happy to think of that, because of course we're little ants compared to these gedolim, but it still gives a beautiful light of what to aspire.
Yeah, absolutely. And what Rav Ashlag here is saying, I think, is that the right hand line needs to be, even whoever we are, okay, We can be, like you said, these little people, but whoever we are, in our own little being, whoever we are, we also can be in this state of happiness and feeling Baruch and feeling blessed, and Baruch mitabek b'Baruch, and the Blessed One connects with the Baruch, and we need to just be like so happy that whatever we're given to do is a gift, and we're given to do it, and we have so much love for God, and God loves us, and to really feel happy on that level.
Thank you so much, Yedida. Thank you. Can you send me so I can print it? I have to go teach now, but can you send that to? I would like to review it on Shabbos.
Yes,
okay. I'll be in touch. Thank you so much, and nice to see you. Leah, are you in Israel? Leah Siegel? Yeah, wonderful. Okay. Well, I hope to meet you when I get there. All right. Anyhow, thank you. I'm sorry to have to run now, and wish everybody Shabbat Shalom. Thank you kindly. Okay, Shabbat Shalom to everybody. Call to Nitron. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. All right. Well, we're nearly finished, so let's just keep going. It's a bit longer than usual, if that's okay. Another few minutes. All right. Okay. So on the right hand line, that's when we get our motive power. Okay. And on the left hand line, we need to really look and see, where we are. And we need to say, wait a minute, I'm not where I should be. And I need to be proud, try to aim for my Ligbali in the left hand line, we need to really aim as high as we can. Okay, so on the right hand line, we're just like everybody else and doing everything for the sake of God, and we're just we're doing working in being happy with what we're able to do. And on the left hand line, we need to be wait a minute, I need to try to aim as high as we can, to aim higher and see how far we are not managing. Okay. All right. So from what we've said, we can understand why is it that the right hand line and the left hand line need to be opposite to each other in our inner work, because we need to work on these two different ways. All right, one on the right hand line, to be feeling just the way I am is the way I'm meant to be, and everything's fine. Okay, and feeling blessed, even with the tiniest bit we're able to do, to feel absolutely blessed. Okay, because from the negative we can't live like that. It's like the right hand line is our food. Okay, it's like the right hand line is food and the left hand line is salt. They work well together, but you can't eat salt. All right, so the right hand line is where we get our motive, where we feel good. Okay. So most of the time a person needs to be on the right hand line. Okay, but if a person's just feeling satisfied with his work, okay, just feeling, yeah, I'm fine just the way I am, who's going to make him go forwards? How are we going to progress? Okay, because there's a general rule, if a person doesn't feel any lack, he's not going to change. Okay, because he feels fine. Therefore, we need to also work on the other side, the left-hand line, which is the bikoit, this criticism on his deeds, if he really is for the sake of giving, and then a person can see what there is to fix. Okay, and that both ways allows him to attain the purpose of creation. Okay, so going on the left-hand line gives a person the ability to progress, because on the left hand line a person can see the truth. Okay, and if a person doesn't go in the way of truth, then on a person falls the curse. Okay, what's the curse? Banim v'banot tulid v'lo yeh lecha ki yelchu b'shevi. What is banim v'banot? Okay, the children that you give rise to, you won't have for yourself, because they go into captivity. And we need to ask on the way of our work, what is these children we're talking about? Banim or banot doesn't mean actual children here, it means good deeds, the good deeds of the righteous. Okay? Where do we learn this from? We learn this from Noah. Noah was a righteous man, and they asked a question on this, Ele toldot Noah, okay? And so these are the generations of Noah, and if it was his generations of Noah, why didn't it write the names? Shem, Ham and Yafet, okay? To teach us that the generations of the tzaddikim are their good deeds, okay? And what does it mean? We need to explain that the children that we give birth to, that is our good deeds, if we don't do our work for the sake of giving, okay, then we won't see any result from our good deeds. All right? Where did all our deeds go to? Ki Tavo b'shevi. They went into captivity. What does it mean? That they went into the captivity of the klipot. They've disappeared from the horizon, and we don't feel them, we can't see them. Okay? So that's the fact, that's the reason is we do good deeds, we do good deeds, we do good deeds. We don't see any results. Okay? Why don't we see any results? Because we're not working on our will to receive. We're just doing the good deeds without looking at the kavanot. And so all those good deeds that we're doing are just sort of just stuck in our will to receive for ourselves alone. That's the captivity. However, when after we do tshuva, okay, we bring out all our work that fell into the klipot back into kedusha, okay? In other words, it didn't get lost. All the work that we did as the potential, okay, in the time of potential, when we're doing Torah mitzvot shelo lishma, when it's in the potential, and because we was not paying attention to the intention behind it, so it's all got swallowed up by our will to receive for ourselves alone. It didn't get lost, but we can get it, but it all comes back. When we now start to work in Kedusha, we get it back, because it says in the scripture of Job, Chel bala v'kienu. He swallowed strength and he vomited it out. Okay? Before we do tshuva, before we come back in our intention to God, then our work is in the aspect of the sea of the Sitra Achra. As the Tehillim say, Ze hayam hagadol v'achav yadayim, sham remes v'ein mispar hayot ktanot im gdolot. That's the big sea. It's very wide, very huge. There are endless little creatures, little and big creatures. Okay. And they got lost there. They fell into the big sea. Okay. Nevertheless, when we start our work for this and try to bring it back into for the sake of giving, that's when that will begin to come back. Okay? Because therefore we need both lines. And in that way, and even though they're contradicting each other, they bring forth the right result. In order that we finally fulfill the purpose of creation, and which enables God to give goodness to the created beings. Okay? Right. And that's basically it. Okay? So therefore, that when we do our work, eventually, all the light that seemed to be swallowed up by our wills to receive for ourselves alone, okay, and was swallowed by our will to receive, all the Torah mitzvot that we were doing not for its own sake, the sea, the system of uncleanness, the framework of uncleanness, spits it back out, okay, and all that is now gathered back in again, and we're now able to receive all that work, which was only in potential, now becomes completely actual, and it becomes the pikadon, becomes the actual deposit of the light from which to receive all God's goodness. Okay. All right, that was a bit of a long one. Was that okay for you? Great, wonderful. 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 Well, Hashem, I thought it was an amazing one because it really gives you a great idea for how to work in the new year.
Yeah.
Yeah, lovely. I'll Esther asked for the actual text. Would you like me to put it up on the chat here, or I'll put it on the WhatsApp group? Then you can then you can all access it and download it and things. It's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Have a lovely, lovely Shabbat. Okay.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
very
Shabbat shalom.
welcome. Yeah, I'll see if we can do something for next week. It'll be a bit close to Rosh Hashanah. We'll see how the cooking goes. Okay.
I've got till Sunday.
Yay, that's true.
Shalom.
Okay. Bye.
All right, everybody. Take care. Have a lovely Shabbat.
You too.
Thanks, Lauren.
I'll see you soon, Yadida.
Yeah, looking forward. Wonderful.
I'm so excited.
Me too. Amazing. Baruch Hashem. Yay. Okay. Bye then.
Thank you for the class. Bye, guys.
Bye, love.